Number 16. Order the following from least to greatest. So what I see here is the first thing that draws my attention is that there is a 0. And there are positive numbers and negative numbers. So I'm going to use that 0 as a central point to help divide up my numbers. Now, there are only 2 negative values that are mentioned or listed, -1 and 7/8, -2 and 1/3. So I know that the number directly to the left of 0 will be -1 and 7/8. And you can look at a number line to help you see this. And what would be more negative and further away from 0 is the number -2 and 1/3. So now we're going to go to the right and look at the positive values. So of the positive values, we have 69 over 140, 71 over 140, the quantity 71 over 140 to the 4th power, and 1/2. So it will be easiest to list these if we have a common denominator. So 1/2 would be the same as 70 over 140. So we can list 3 of the numbers in order, the 69 over 140, 71 over 140, and 70 over 140. But what remains is 71 over 140, that quantity to the 4th power. Now that would be very close to saying 1/2 to the 4th power. And if you look at the value of 1/2 to the 4th power, that would be 1 divided by 16, which is significantly smaller than 1/2. So that would be the next value just to the right of 0 is going to be 71 over 140 raised to the 4th power. And then after that, we can list the final 3 numbers in a row. We can list 69 over 140, 70 over 140, which we would list as 1/2, and then 71 over 140. Number 17, divide each of the following. So 15 divided by -3 would give me -5. 0 divided by 7 is 0. -8 divided by -2 gives me 4. 11 divided by 0 is undefined. Number 18. Write a story problem that models 4 and 5/8 divided by 1/2. Solve the problem by drawing appropriate diagrams. An example of a story problem, and I'm just going to mention it here, would be something like a seamstress has 4 and 5/8 yards of fabric, which she needs to cut into 1/2 yard pieces. How many pieces will she have? So the diagram is what I want to express in this review on the key, and it says specifically to draw an appropriate diagram. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just represent each yard of this fabric by a square. You can use a circle if you like. And the reason I chose a square is because we have that 5/8, and 5/8 is easy to represent as a square. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight the area of the square that we have of the fabric. And I need to cut this one into 8ths. And I have 5/8 left. Now comes the part where I have to cut this into halves, right? We want to divide it into half yard pieces. So I'm going to cut the first piece, the second yard, the third yard, fourth yard, and then here I have the fifth yard that I have left of that yard of the 5/8. So I see that I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. So it goes into there 9 and 1/8. So it'd be 1/4 of a half. And the reason it would be 1/4 of a half is that this piece right here is a half and 1/4 of it is colored. Number 19. Find two rational numbers between 3/4 and 4/5. There is a theorem in the book that does state that if you add the numerator and the denominator, so 3 plus 4 over 4/5, 4 plus 5, you will get a number between those two fractions. And so in this case, we get 7/9. Now, since we have another number, 7/9, which is between 3/4 and 4/5, we can look for, we can take 3 plus 7 and 4 plus 9 and get 10 over 13. And that would be a number between 3/4 and 7/9. So those two numbers, 7/9 and 10/13, are between 3/4 and 4/5. The ratio of boys to girls in a class is 4:3. If there are 15 girls, how many boys are there? And then B, how many students total are there? So for A, what we will do is we're going to use our proportions with the ratios. Since it is boys to girls and it's 4:3, that means for every 4 boys, there are 3 girls. Now, since we know there are 3 girls, what we will say, and you want to know how many boys there are, we will say that 15 girls is to 3 girls as X boys is to 4 boys. Now, with the proportion, we would cross multiply or just, actually we can multiply both sides by 4. Notice that we can simplify the fraction. And so X would end up equaling 20 boys. That would be the answer to A, which means with B, asking total students, there would be 35 total students. Number 21. Use the chip model to compute. So for A, to show this is a chip model, I would have, just look at my squares, and I would have 3 positive chips, and I would have 7 negative chips. This is a nice manipulative, in essence, which you can just write out on your paper. And I know that every positive chip cancels a negative chip, and so in the end, I have a -4. B. Use the chip model for -5 plus -6. Okay, so here are my 5 negative chips. And then to that, I'm going to add an additional 6 negative chips. There is nothing to take away. And when I look at what I have -11 negative chips. Number 22, use the number line model to compute. Okay, so I need a number line for number 22. I'm going to have 2 different number lines. So for A, I need to, here's my 0. Look at the size of my numbers. Here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5 in the opposite direction. So my first arrow, I start at 0, and it's 5, so negative 5. So I'm going to point to the left. You could also start at negative 5 if you like. And then for adding 5, I'm going to have an arrow that points to the right. So my answer is going to be, notice they cancel each other out and I get a 0 for B. I look at my numbers, and 2, 3, 4, 5, there's negative 5, there's negative 10. So I'm going to start by using, my first number is negative 5, so starting at the origin or 0, my first arrow goes to the left because it's in the negative direction, 5. And then I will go an add additional negative 6. So my number is negative 11. Number 23. In 1971, the lowest recorded temperature in the United States is negative 62 degrees Celsius was in Prospect Creek Camp, Alaska. The same year, Arizona recorded a low temperature of negative 40 degrees at Howley Lake. Alaska's temperature was recorded at an elevation of 1,100 feet above sea level, while Arizona's was recorded at 8,180 feet above sea level. A. What is the low temperature difference between Alaska and Arizona? So we'll start with the Alaska temperature, and we're looking for the difference, so we will be subtracting. So it would be a negative 62 minus a negative 40. Remember that minus a negative turns into a positive, and you end up with negative 22 degree Celsius difference. B. What is the elevation between Arizona and Alaska where the low temperatures were measured? Okay, so Arizona is mentioned first, and the elevation was 8,180 feet, and the elevation in Alaska was 1,100 feet, so 7,080 feet difference. 80-foot difference. C. Hawaii's lowest temperature on record is a negative 11 degrees Celsius. What would you expect to be true about the elevation of the site where the temperature was measured? When we think about how Alaska and Arizona's temperatures were compared and the elevations that where the low temperatures were recorded, Arizona, which is normally a warmer climate, the elevation was significantly higher than the low temperature recorded in Alaska. Now, since Hawaii is even more tropical than Alaska or Arizona, I would expect for the elevation to be high as well. So what would you expect to be true about the elevation of the site where this temperature was measured? The elevation would be significantly higher than the elevation of Alaska. #24. simplify. So what we're looking at in 24 is the multiplication of two binomials, but there is a pattern. This is a sum and difference, which means we look at the first term squared minus the second term squared, or 16x squared minus 81. Now, this can help us when we are doing questions like 25, which specifically says use the difference of squares to compute 49 times 51, which is used to help us use common numbers to square to find this product. I can describe 49 as 50 minus 1, and I can describe 51 as 50 plus 1. So using the sum and difference, because the only thing that differs is the operation in each of the binomials, we would end up having 2500, which is 50 squared, minus 1. The answer would be 2449. Or excuse me, 2499. There we go.